Welcome to the Resource Podcast, where we take a slightly sassy, fully feminist approach to creating healthy relationships and a joyful life. I'm your host, Tatiana Thompson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in both Arizona and Minnesota. I specialize in applying clinically proven techniques like EMDR, parts work, and neural reprogramming to help you see real, lasting change in your everyday life. Just remember, I am a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist. This show is for informational purposes only, and it's not a replacement for seeking personal mental health or medical advice. So join me now as we explore simple strategies for breaking toxic relationship patterns and applying simple mental health tools to your daily life. Learn how to take the small steps today that will guide you to your best life tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the Resourced Podcast, the show that invites you to question everything you thought you knew about relationships and mental health so you can finally break through your stuck points and create the life you've always wanted. I'm your host, Tatiana, and I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women become emotionally and financially independent so they can choose a relationship instead of needing one. And today we are continuing our conversation about the harms of the not all men rhetoric. And I want to briefly acknowledge that these episodes are likely to stir up some stuff for you, whether it's a newfound passion for this work and your feminist goals, or anger at the system, or even anger at me for making such bold statements without apology. Or it could also bring up shame, or a combination of all of these things. But I want you to know that if it's bringing stuff up, you're in the right place. And I hope today's episode helps to create a path forward for you. Because my goal with today's episode is to offer a framework for actual healing that does not rely on pandering to wounded male egos at the expense of women's safety and validation. Nor does it involve hating all men or justifying mistreatment of men in general. But it does require us to stop watering down our fear and our experiences. So as I mentioned in my last episode, my goal with these episodes is to empower every person who is harmed by the patriarchy, which includes men, guys, to move beyond our training and to start and expect and create real change. But in order to get to a state of empowerment, like we said before, we have to witness and validate our grief. We have to metabolize our anger, and then we define and set new boundaries, and we behave differently in the world to hold those boundaries. So if you haven't already listened to my last episode, it's part 1 of this series. I would highly recommend starting there, but this episode can stand alone if you would rather start here. So we've been talking about the harm of the quote-unquote not all men rhetoric. Let's start by summarizing some of the ways that this negatively impacts everyone. Okay, number 1. When women do try to speak up, we're telling our stories, we are expressing frustration, we're now being pressured by this whole story of not all men to soften our message, to minimize our experience, and worst of all, to even have to argue the validity of what's happened. And I talk about in this last episode a very recent, very obvious experience of that. Therefore, women continue to receive the message that men's feelings and egos need to be prioritized over women's protection, and that in order to get protection or justice or anything else, we have to make sure the men in the room are comfortable, which is ridiculous. That's not our job. Our job is to get assistance. Our job is to get validation. So it's socializing us not to complain, to just stop complaining, to ask for things passively. By the way, this is super related to men's complaints that women don't say what they want. They just passively ask for things. I'm not condoning that, by the way. Women, we need to learn how to speak for what we want. But gentlemen, there's a reason we have been trained not to do that. Because when we do, we are called bitchy, we're called nags, we're called too difficult, we're called high maintenance, whatever it might be. But getting back to what this has trained us to do, again, we're socialized to not complain, to ask for things passively, and to sublimate our anger. Side note, I do a whole episode on how suppressed anger is literally killing women. Please go listen to that. It is mind-boggling, in fact. Another thing that not all men is doing is it's training our daughters to be submissive, other-oriented, caretaking, over-functioning, and to center males. And then on the flip side, it's training our sons to avoid accountability, to be self-oriented, to be egotistical, and to expect caretaking that leads to them not having to have any ounce of conscientiousness. And then this all affects women because many of these women will want a partner someday, but then they don't have any egalitarian men to choose from, or they don't have many, right? So the final thing that I think Not All Men is doing is it's keeping us compliant. It's keeping us serving the patriarchal system. If we're not allowed to have needs or express our anger, that means we're in service of someone else, right? We are, again, putting someone else's needs, comfort ahead of our own. And I believe we are playing into this compliance for two primary reasons. First, I know all women can relate to this. We fear men's retribution, both emotional and physical. Guess what, guys? Calling us names actually matters. You can affect our careers in ways that another man cannot affect your career. We do not have the same power. And then again, don't forget the physical. I had a man approach me on my walk this morning. And after what happened a couple weeks ago, I asked him to keep his distance because he was a single man. He didn't have a dog. There was no reason for him to approach me, to cross the street to approach me. And so my assumption was I got to keep myself safe first and foremost. So ladies, leave a note in the comments. How many times have you been punished for expressing a problem to a man? And how many times did you feel the threat or the reality of bodily harm? Okay, the other reason we stay compliant to this is we are trained that men are the ticket to security and that we have to gain safety by gaining a man. Again, that is the fact that men do have power in our society. They have more access to income. We know this statistically. They have more access to influence. And so most of us from just the get-go are trained, find a man, he's going to be your ticket to safety. And the sad thing about that is this is also turning women against women. I was just listening to an excellent podcast, and the woman on the podcast is Tara Moore, and she talks about how not only women are turning against women because we have to filter all of this in ourselves, and we kind of feel resentful when we see a woman not dimming themselves, not doing what they're supposed to do, not following the script. It's an enviable experience. But I also think that women do this because we have been trained to perform for the male gaze. We do see that there are a limited number of men or good, viable men out there. So we have to fight for this resource. There are only so many good men. We have to fight other women, so we have to tear other women down for it. If men are the prize and there are only so many, women are now in competition for them. So it's a very smart survival tactic for some women to pander to these men and tear other women down, thus perpetuating the whole cycle. Okay, so these are the harms, just overview, broad overview of what this not all men rhetoric is perpetuating. I guess it's not necessarily creating it, but it is perpetuating it. Now that we can see some of the ways it is keeping us stuck in a vicious cycle of relying on the very system that exploits us, right? What are we going to do about it? And I don't just want to say ladies here. I want to say everyone. All right, let me give a quick trigger warning before we dive in. As I discuss all of this, I will be discussing real harm that befalls women, and it may be very triggering to any form of a victim. And I will be cussing again, so get ready for it. Okay, so here's my step-by-step plan for women and for the men who are listening and all genders of how we move out of this. Women, I'm going to start with you. Men, I'll give you your list next. Okay, so number one, first and frickin' foremost, we must start validating our own experiences. Ladies, stop invalidating what you're going through. Stop undermining your intuition when someone makes you feel weird. Stop getting in the elevator alone with the guy who made you feel creepy. Just wait. Go up the stairs. Don't do it. You don't owe him some social nicety. Stop giving your coworkers excuses for making crass or sexually explicit statements. And most importantly, witness your past experiences with empathy and complete validation that what you experienced was wrong and will never be allowed to happen again. Believe it or not, you may find this step to be the hardest of all, and I want you to fight the urge to play possum like you've been trained to do, and instead step in with the wisdom and protection of a wise adult who knows right from wrong and doesn't fear taking a stand. I don't want to watch you tell yourself a story that young man didn't know what he was doing yet. I promise you, he is a mammal and he has all the senses of other mammals. No, he may not have received good training, but he knew you were uncomfortable. He knew he was manipulating you into some sort of behavior that you were not comfortable with, and it wasn't okay. Does that mean he deserves to be behind bars? Maybe in that circumstance, no. But it does mean that you get to validate what happened to you and how it was not okay and how you would never let it happen again. Next, I want you to find ways to tap into your righteous anger. So the first, again, step is always about validating. Stop invalidating. The next is to say, I'm fucking angry about this. And yes, I'm saying righteous anger. You have a right to this anger. This is hard because, as I said in the first episode, you've been trained to not feel anger. In fact, it's terrifying for you. So I know there are many of you listening right now who are like, I don't feel a lot of anger. I don't know what you're talking about, Tatiana. Yes, you do. You just don't have access to it. So sorry. I do not mean to patronize you or talk down to you. I'm just saying, if you've been mistreated, which you have anger, you just don't know how to tap into it yet. So this is a great opportunity to consider working with a therapist who can help you learn how to tap into it, to understand that feeling anger does not mean you're going to act out on it in a destructive way. Remember, emotions are one thing, actions are another. We need to learn how to feel the emotion without taking out of control action as a result of not dealing with the emotion. Because you really do need to tap into your own personal, your generational, and the collective harm that has been done to you, your ancestors, and all women around the world. They have suffered at the hands of men, and so have you. But you've been raised in a world where you were stripped of your core identity and trained to cultivate your appearance, your pleasingness to men the second that you hit puberty, and for some even earlier, and I'm so sorry to hear that. And that's bullshit. And you should be angry about this. Get mad about all the lies you've been told or manipulations you've had to navigate because some guy wanted access to your body or something else that you have. Get pissed that you were eye-raped by some old dude at Walmart when you were 13 years old and made you want to cover yourself up forever after that. Get livid that you have to consider the time of day and what you're wearing every time you step outside. Get furious that about 98% of sexual perpetrators will never spend a day behind bars. That means only 2% of women see any justice. Get enraged, please, that there are 9-year-olds being married off somewhere in the world right now, and there are others that are having their clitorises cut off somewhere in the world right now. Get furious that we have video and written and multiple forms of evidence of multiple male leaders in our country enslaving and raping women and children, and none of them have spent a day behind bars. Get sick about the fact that across the globe, a female will die at the hands of her family member or intimate partner every 10 minutes. That leads to 50,000 homicides per year. And probably the most deep for you is get honest about all the times you've been threatened or actually harmed at the hand of a man. This is not just other women. There is a reason we're scared. There's a reason that quote is so true from the last episode. I'm going to say it again. A man's life will become better if he does not judge all women by the actions of the most cruel few. But a woman's life will be over if she does not judge all men by the actions of the most cruel few. Because the sad reality is women are being harmed every single day. At this second that I'm speaking right now, a woman is being harmed by a man. Right now. And I have yet to meet a woman who hasn't been harmed in that way, in some way, by a man. And the crazy thing is this, women don't cause this harm to other people. And I'm going to tell you, yes, I know there are random offshoots of this where women do harm other women. But I would also argue 90% of those cases, they're doing it as the bidding for a man, or they're doing it to gain the power that a man has. Okay? Women who groom children are not doing it to molest them in most cases. Yes, I know, I will acknowledge there are rare cases. P.S. She was probably molested by a man earlier in her life. But women who are doing this are doing it for a man to gain access to the resources that a man has. It is a survival instinct. It isn't a billionaire woman who's exploiting people. It's a broke woman who is trying to keep her boyfriend in the house, who's overlooking the fact that he might be touching someone in her household. Okay, it's a desperation. So there's this great video going viral that kind of makes this point so insanely clear. And I love it. And then it also makes me cry to listen to it and to watch it. It's short statements from women across the globe. And all they're doing is daring you to name a single country where women see the same privileges or have to be given the same laws that men need in order to avoid harming others. So some of the questions look like, name a country where women need laws to tell them not to marry children. Or name a country where boys are killed by their own family members for being attacked. This happens, guys. Name a country where they conduct a majority of medical research on females and forget male bodies. And then it's crazy how long the video is. There were so many things that they thought of that are just so insidious that I hadn't even thought of, but it goes on and on. Because women don't instinctively hurt or extract from others the way that men have and still do. Do I fully understand the function of why that happens with men? I mean, I have a lot of theories, but no. Does it mean men are inherently bad? No, but it does mean the men are socialized differently, men have different instincts, and they've had power and no real form of accountability to bring it into safety for other people. So, hearing all of that, get fucking angry about it, okay? Guys, I want you to get angry about it. This is the world that we live in. And I sadly want to appeal to your desire to protect your daughters, your wives, your mothers. But that's also a problem we have with men. I don't want it to have to be about something that impacts you for you to care. I want you to care before you have a daughter. I want you to care before you have to think about your wife in that situation. I want you to care before you think about your mom. I want you to care because it's another human being. That's the problem we see from men. Oh, I suddenly understood what women are going through because I had a daughter. What the fuck? Start understanding what other people are going through because they're other human beings. Because the people benefiting from the system want you to continue stuffing this down. Ladies, it allows them to continue. If you keep stuffing this down and you don't get angry and you don't stand up for yourself, they get to continue doing it. And I give the disclaimer in the last episode. When I say get angry and do something about it, I'm not talking about being the angry lady out there. I'm talking about getting angry in the privacy of your own home, in your own therapy, doing your own work, and then coming out with different standards of, I don't date men who don't understand the gender divide, who need me to prove it to them. That's just me showing up differently. That's not me being angry. That's just saying, I'm not going to waste my time on a guy who wants me to do that labor for him or wants me to prove to him my issues. That's on him. Remember, nothing in this world has ever changed by stuffing it down. It has to come to light. So that is unfortunately our job. So now that you're done denying your anger, I want you to work with a skilled therapist or coach to start metabolizing it. And that's when we get our real power back, because you won't be a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. You'll understand that your anger is there for a reason, and it can be used in real time to set boundaries and protect yourself and others. Okay, so next step. Stop trying to convince men of your point. If they want to argue, disengage. Now, if a man is genuinely curious about how he can be an advocate, support him, but also don't do all the labor for him. But seriously, stop trying to convince anyone who needs convincing. It's not your job anymore. Go back to my episode on white supremacy. Last episode, I talk about my own experience with that, where we cannot ask the oppressed group to do all the labor for us or to hold our hand or to make it safer for us. We need to do that work ourselves. Next, and in line with this, stop dating men who deliberately misunderstand you and misunderstand this. Only date men who are genuinely aware and interested in learning more about these problems. And I know this feels implausible, but it's literally the only way to make this change. I love the videos I see on Instagram and TikTok where, some guy, you'll hear his voiceover and a woman in her beautiful apartment, and he'll say, if women aren't careful and they don't lower their standards, they're going to die alone in their beautiful apartments, surrounded by beautiful friends, eating delicious food, snuggling with their gorgeous pets. And you get it, right? Okay, we've got great lives now. Go enjoy that. Wait till someone worthy of you shows up, okay? And I'm telling you, Anyone who doesn't understand this at a point, whether it's subconscious or not, and I understand it's mostly subconscious, they are deliberately misunderstanding you, okay? It is because it is serving a narrative, whether it is to keep the power dynamic where it is, or it's to hide shame of not understanding this before and shame of engaging in this. Guys, dive into your shame. Please, I know it's hard. It's so hard. Dive into your shame and own it. You're not a bad person. But if you stay engaged this way, you are choosing the wrong. You are choosing to harm other people. So all of this is to say, I want you to expect more from all the men in your life. Don't be silent when you see misogyny. Speak up. Go to rallies. Engage in ways that feel authentic to you, okay? It doesn't have to be what I just said, but engage in ways that feel authentic to you. But say something. And again, you don't have to say it in an angry way. You can say something like, hey, you may not be aware, but that is an inherently misogynistic thing to say, and you might want to edit that in the future. Or you might say, hey, did you mean to come across as sexist when you said that? Those are reasonable ways to say something without trying to be cruel to anybody. Also, in this vein, I want you to stop saying not all men or apologizing or qualifying your concerns when you state them. Any man who isn't yet at the point that he can tolerate a commentary on the state of the world without you managing his ego is not someone you need to be worrying about, okay? You don't need his acceptance, his validation, his approval to be safe. You did when you were little. You did when you relied on a man in your marriage and you had no financial support. I'm so sorry that those things happened to you, but you are an adult now. You have agency and autonomy. And if you don't fully have that, please seek the professional help that you need to gain that, okay? Also, this is an interesting one. I want all of us, this is another step in this process. I want us to expect men to be providers in the ways that matter to us, not just what's convenient for them. And this all hinges on the idea that men express that they love to be needed. They want to be providers and protectors, which is great. That is a high masculine trait, right? But when we move into toxic masculinity, it's from the perspective of, I want to be seen as a protector. I want to impress women. I don't want to actually make women feel safe. I want to be seen as helpful, but I'm going to do it in ways that are convenient for me, not in ways that she actually needs. So ladies, no more accepting what's easy for them over what you actually need. I'm not asking them to do more for us than we're willing to do for ourselves or for them. I'm just saying we need to expect them to be equal partners and not inflate their gestures to seem more valuable than they are. And I have a perfect story to elucidate this. I think it's one that every woman can relate to. My friend shared it with me and with a group of us, and she did give me permission to share it on the podcast. If you love what you're hearing and you're ready to take your life to the next level, consider working with me one-on-one. I can see clients located in Arizona, Minnesota, and Ohio. Imagine where you could be 1 year from now if you start your healing journey today. So this story speaks perfectly to the performative version of a provider/protector that many of us have encountered, right? So she's living with this man. He's her partner at the time. And he wasn't great about participating in the household management, but he would do this thing that made him feel like a really great guy. He happened to pass by her favorite pastry shop on his way home from the gym every day. So he would frequently stop and grab her a croissant as a kind of gesture. And I know I say croissant wrong. So she thought this was really sweet, and he thought this was super cool that he was so thoughtful, right? But as time went on, she realized he was only doing the sweet things that were easy for him and made him look good. And he looked good on paper, right? He looked good to the friends. He looked so thoughtful. But one simple thing, she kept asking him to call the dishwasher repair person, and he kept putting it off for weeks, right? Like, this isn't a one-off either. It wasn't just the dishwasher repair person. It was a pattern of not hearing the real need around the house. By the way, maybe he could see there was a need, not even needing her to tell him. Ideal. But you can bet your ass he kept getting her croissants and gave her those golden retriever smiles saying, I want high praise for my thoughtfulness. Aren't I amazing? Oh my gosh, love me, love me, love me. But all she could think was, I just need your help with the dishwasher and you keep ignoring my direct request. Drop the croissant. She literally said that. Just drop the fucking croissant. And I know all of us can relate to this. We end up feeling confused about our resentment because on paper, these guys seem to be ticking all the boxes. They seem to be thoughtful, but they're not really listening to what we actually need in a partner. We need somebody to run the household with us. It can't just be our job to go to work as well and run the entire household. P.S. If you're a stay-at-home parent or homemaker, it is also not your job to have a 24/7 job. Your partner goes to work, let's say generously, 8 to 10 hours a day. When they get home, they don't get to be the only one who relaxes. You should be allowed to relax too. It can't only be your job. Those off hours, when your partner's at work, you are working too. And then when they come home, you both go on the night shift, okay? So this reminds me, all of this whole performative provider thing, of a conversation about the difference between dating a boy and dating a man. If you look at an adolescent version of a person, the adolescent has the drive to do some chores, make some effort for others. But look at this. It's always tied to the expectation of something in return, whether it's praise or a favor in return. But an adult does those things because they need to be done and because they care about the person on the receiving end without any expectation of praise or reward. Do I get praised for making my children breakfast every day? No, I do it because I love them and I want them to have a good start to their day. But we go back into that whole trope of like an average woman isn't a great man, right? The man who takes his children to McDonald's is a great father because he's engaged with them. He's taking them out. A woman who takes her children to McDonald's is a lazy mother because she didn't cook a home-cooked meal. And it goes in the inverse. A horrible, awful mother is just an average man. A woman who abandons her children is a horrible, awful mother. But that's kind of average, right? For men. It's something we expect. It happens a lot. A woman who doesn't know her own children's birth dates or who their pediatrician is, oh my God, horrible woman. But that's just an average man. What do we expect? That's what guys do. It's okay. We know someone will figure it out. The woman will, right? So we need to expect more of our men. We need to say, that's not working. That's not enough. And you don't get praise for doing the basic things. If he can buy you flowers but doesn't know how or when to refill the toilet paper or any other number of obvious adult responsibilities, you're dealing with an adolescent and you're not dealing with a man, and it's time to expect more, and it may mean you have to move on if he cannot grow up. So ladies, expect more. Just like we vote with our dollars, in relationships we vote with our time and attention. Stop wasting your time on people who aren't at your level and aren't genuinely interested in joining you there. All right, that wraps up my list for women. Now, men in the audience, I would like to share what you can do. Let's start with the simple. I want you to get educated, get curious, start to acknowledge your privileges of just walking through the world as a man. Does that mean your life wasn't hard or isn't hard? Absolutely not. That's not what we're saying. It just doesn't compare to what a woman is going through. You don't understand how different it is. Use Google. Use trusted women to give you some examples. Please do not put all the burden on them, but ask them questions and start to put yourself in their shoes and consider for a moment how tiring it must be to always be on guard or having to be better than men competitors in order to be even considered for something. Guess what? We have to support our families too. Many of us are oftentimes single parents. But, oh my gosh, this is a huge one. Ali Wong does this great bit. She's a comedian. Oh my God, check her out. She's amazing. She goes, do you have any idea how much more successful I would be if I had a wife at home just taking care of everything? Most of us don't have that, but most men do. Can you imagine, ladies, if you were a full-time employee and a parent and you had someone at home managing all of the housework, all of the childcare, all of the scheduling, all of the mental load? I almost think most of us would feel really uncomfortable with that. We would actually feel really uncomfortable. I would feel uncomfortable with that. And I'm working through my own misogyny and sexism. I can't imagine how easy my life would be. It'd be insane. So all this to say, we need you to not be sexist in the workplace, gentlemen, because we need those promotions just as badly as you do, and sometimes maybe even more because we're not making as much on the dollar. and we shouldn't be punished because of our gender or because our role as a mother means we have more domestic labor and parenting demands on our shoulders, which means, for example, when my kids were young and I was divorced and my child kept having medical issues at school, I was the one who had to go pick her up because my ex's job was quote unquote more important than mine. It wasn't, but he felt it was. And I didn't have any leverage to say that's not true. You do have to participate. So I missed out on a ton of work hours. I lost PTO. I lost momentum in my career as a result of that. And that's so common for women, and that's not our fault. That needs to be supported in our society. So we need people in power to name it when it's happening and to start changing the system. The fact that the United States has 0 required maternity leave is so abysmal. I can't find the word for it. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. And I think we're the only top level nation that doesn't have that. Okay, so all that to say, get educated, get curious, get aware of your privilege, and stop being afraid to do that. We are not asking you to acknowledge your privilege to diminish your own experiences or to say that things aren't hard for you or to say that you're a villain. You're not a villain. I have a ton of white privilege. Does that make me a villain? No. But to pretend like it's not there, yeah, it does. Okay? Next, I want you to stop arguing against our stories, our trauma, and our pain. Just because you can't feel it or don't see it does not make it unreal. When a woman tells you something, please believe her. The risk of her lying is so much smaller than you realize. So this is where we get caught up in. A lot of men have this fear of false accusations, right? And yes, there are absolutely cases where women make false claims, but I want to quantify this for you, okay, guys? The odds of you being accused falsely of a sexual misconduct is 0.0002% up to 0.01%. That isn't even a percentage point. Please rack that in your brain right now. Just put it away somewhere. That's not even a percentage point. That is a very low number. And the thing is, women, 30% of women will experience sexual violence in their lifetime. 30%. These aren't decimal numbers. These are full numbers. And by the way, that statistic is only females 15 and over. That's not even counting for all of the child sexual abuse. We have to stop acting like these are equal risks. I am never going to condone anyone making a false claim. And if you're doing things like that, or even implying it, or even just making, I will catch younger generations say, oh, he had pedophile vibes. He's a pedo. And I'm like, I understand that you're listening to your intuition. Don't start making those announcements to other people about a particular person, okay? That is defamation of character. It is an unfair claim. Please be careful about those types of things. Now, if someone does demonstrate that, yes, report it. Yes, spread the word. And if you feel uncomfortable around somebody, absolutely say that, but don't give them a label that you don't actually have information on, okay? But back to the point, we have to stop comparing the risks that men face versus what women are actually experiencing in reality. And remember, most women are not even reporting what's happening to them because they know it's a he said, she said game. In so many cases, it's so nuanced. It is so nuanced what happens, but the manipulations and the danger are so real. Most women, over 50%, will encounter unwanted sexual contact at some point in their lives from a man. And let me tell you right now, my first time, and I did say first, by the way, because there are many, it happened when I was 11 years old, guys. And ladies, I know you can relate to this. My parents had dropped me and a friend off at our local library for the afternoon. And, it's a local library. What's going to happen there? It was one of those first times I got to be on my own in a public place. So exciting, right? But this man started following us around, and he would hide behind bookshelves and intentionally expose his genitals and start stroking himself in front of us. And then we would go somewhere else because we were terrified, and he'd follow us, make eye contact, and start doing it again. He was following us. We didn't know what to do. We were terrified. We were 11 years old. Of course we didn't know what to do. But how scary, how disgusting, how inappropriate, how life-changing. I don't want to downplay that. That's life-changing. So please stop arguing that what we experience isn't valid or scary. Because guess what? If not for us, do it for your own self-preservation. When you do that, we don't trust you and we don't like you. Next, gentlemen, go to therapy. Just go to therapy. What's the harm? What's the risk? Stop telling me you don't need it. You do. We all need it. Go to therapy. You've been indoctrinated with a lot of harmful things. You've been harmed with a lot of harmful things. Go to therapy, increase your emotional availability and intelligence, and start meeting her emotionally where she is already meeting you financially. Okay? We are having to cross the gender divide and do what the other gender is doing. Women are doing that. Stop leaving the majority of domestic labor and child rearing on her shoulders, the emotional labor, all of it. Share the mental load with us. If you still don't understand what that means, get genuinely curious and start following influencers who explain it, or talk to your therapist. Women have had to match men in the world academically and career-wise, which is traditionally the man's domain, right? The men are not keeping pace with women in traditionally female domains like emotional intelligence or domestic labor or childcare. That's not reasonable. We cannot do it all. Next, if you want to be a provider or protector, care about what she actually needs and wants, not just what you're good at or comfortable with. Love is not convenient. And I promise you that many women in your life have spent countless hours trying to please you outside of their comfort zones, and they will continue to do so. So as usual, I'm not asking you to do something that isn't being done for you. It's time to start doing it for the people in your life as well. It's time to start reciprocating and start treating love like a verb and not a feeling. And the most important step, drum roll please. Men, we need you to start speaking up. When you hear another man in your life making misogynistic comments or undermining a woman's experience or being outright hostile or violent to women, say something. I wanted to say please say something. I don't want to say please. Say something. How can you not? I know it feels threatening to your relationships, but if you feel scared, imagine how we feel. Okay, I think that brings us to a wrap. And I'm sure I haven't thought of all the ways that men can help us heal the gender divide. So if you think of things, add them to the comments section, please. Everyone, gentlemen, ladies alike. We have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. And the only way we're going to get there is if all genders start doing things differently. Women, let's stand up for ourselves and stop worrying about being liked so much by men. Men, let's educate ourselves and remember that compassion and growth are sexy as hell. They are not a threat to your masculinity. Thank you so much for listening today. Please be sure to share this with anyone you think would benefit from this content. Just to give you a heads up, I will be taking next week off, but I will be back with another very exciting topic the following week. Remember this, we can make this world a truly better place, and my hope is that we'll do it together instead of at odds with each other. In the meantime, take care of yourself, and remember, stop chasing and start choosing. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Resourced Podcast. My hope is that you learned at least one practical tool you can apply to your life today to move in the direction of your dreams. If you found this content helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and consider subscribing to my email list, which is linked in the show notes. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What step will you take today?